Good evening. Good evening. We are back again with another episode of our Bhangology learning series. I am your host, Dr. Tanya Lowe, the CEO and founder of the Renewing Extract Wellness and Bhangology. And tonight, I am so excited about this topic. I am so excited about our guest. And I'm just excited. So get ready, get your questions together. I'm going to go ahead and introduce her so we can get through this. Send us some good vibes because she's in an area where the weather is kind of funky. But guess what? We're going to do this. So our guest teacher tonight, she wanted to be a healer. And it's my privilege to introduce to you Sequoyah Taylor, FDNP. Sequoyah is a functional diagnostic nutrition practitioner, and she specializes in genetics and advocates for the use of CBD. She assists women with discovering and decoding their genetic design code so that they can truly understand their genetic genius, so that they can live a healthier, happier, and more harmonious life. She does this by making healthcare, your healthcare when you work with her customized and individualized by creating the book of you. I just love that. So without further ado, I am going to bring our guest in. Let's see. Bring our guest in. I'm going to change my screen. Hey, if you're here with us, say something in the chat if you're here with us tonight. And then I'm going to add Miss Sequoyah to the broadcast. Sequoyah, are you there?
I'm here. Can you hear me?
I can hear you just fine. Welcome, welcome, welcome.
Eek, I'm so excited.
We've been talking about this for quite some time. We've been talking about doing this segment. I know we connected. I think it was last year when I first launched Bhangology, and so I'm so excited that we get to work together tonight. I see that folks are coming in. I see that Chef Dr. Alex is with us tonight, coming all the way from Las Vegas, where she says it's 108 and sunny there. So, and it's pretty good here in Atlanta. Sequoyah, where are you located?
So I'm actually in Florida, and usually it is sunny with that feels like 108. But
Yes.
we have been having some rainy weather, so it's been up and down. I think we're getting ready for fall. So.
Oh my goodness. Well, without further ado, I'm going to turn it on over to you. I will drive for you. And guys, I present to you Sequoyah Taylor, and she's going to talk to us about genetics and CBD.
Thank you. Thank you so much. So first of all, let me just say thank you so much, Dr. Tanya, for having me. Like she said, we've been talking about this for some time. And so first of all, if you guys have any questions, please do put those in the chat. I am an interactive educator. I love using slides as a talking point. But if you have any questions, please ask, because we can definitely take this in a way that you guys would like. And so the main thing that we're going to be talking about tonight is genetics and CBD. When I say this to most people, they are very much like shocked about when I say genetics and CBD, because those two things they feel like don't even have anything to do with each other, right? They're like, wait, when you say genetics, what do you mean? And then what does that have to do with CBD? So tonight we're going to talk about that a little bit, and just get a little bit more information about how you can use your genetics to learn how you can incorporate CBD and should you incorporate CBD and in what ways, right? So what's the next slide for me? So like Dr. Tanya did, she did an excellent intro. I don't think I did an intro. My name is Sequoyah Taylor. I go by Sequoyah Taylor a lot as well. I'm the CEO and founder of Ashe Wellness, and I am a functional diagnostic nutrition practitioner. All that good jazz means that I'm able to do my wellness practice. I'm able to do genetic testing. I'm able to do lab testing to actually do it in a functional and integrative medicine type of way. So I use a lot of science-based things to help you with your wellness so that we can show you, right? My niche specialties are genetics and epigenetics. And we're going to talk about that a little bit about what that means and why that is important for us today as we venture on our wellness journey. So first of all, before we fully get into like the good information about the CBD and genetics, I like to tell people and educate them because that is my goal is to be an educator and a healer, as Dr. Tonya said before. I like to educate people, and so I can get all science and techy and geeky about this stuff all day. But I also like to be the healer and to help you to realize that you can heal yourself. When it comes to genetics, right? Most people say genetics. When you hear that, they think about one or two or three different things when we talk about genetics. But there are three different ways primarily that you can actually use your genetics, right? The first way that I use genetics is in a science-based way. Using your genetics, which means using your DNA to help you in a science way, meaning for your health and wellness. This means that we are able to look at your genetics, look at your DNA, and figure out ways to help you on a health and wellness way. So we're going to be talking about that a little bit more today. Another way that most people don't realize, and this is very, very, very like weird to people, and they're like, "Wait a minute, what are you talking about?" That when we're looking at the genetic code, when you have 100% of the DNA, your genetic code only makes up 3 to 5% of that genetic DNA. So they're telling us that 3 to 7% of that 100% is only used for science based. So they're considering the other 93 to 97% as junk DNA. They call it literally junk DNA. They'll say, well, that's junk DNA. We don't use it. There's nothing that we can do about it. So, but if you believe in a higher power, if you believe that every molecule, every cell, every hair on your body was perfectly designed, then you know that that's impossible for something to just be junk. It's just there for a reason. And so the other way that you can actually use your genetics and your DNA is in a spiritual way, right? Spiritually going through and learn about your genetics, spiritually understanding what is energy, right? When you used to hear people talk about yin and yang and chi, using things for light, right? When you start talking about emotional and where your body stores that emotional, the body, soul, and spirit, if you will. And so there's different ways that you can use your genetics in a spiritual way as well. Another way, which is one of the prime ways that people use or hear about using genetics, is through succession or through genealogy. I was doing the S's, so I thought it would be cute to keep the whole thing. But most people use their DNA and their genetics to find out about their genetic history. Hey, I am 97% this. I'm 22% this. I think I have Indian in my family, so I find out that I'm not Indian, right? I'm 27% Caucasian and 92% African American, right? When they use genetics from different companies to find out their genealogy, right? Who you're succeeding from, your succession line. So you find out different things about yourself, like where you come from, how much of certain cultures you may have, and that plays a very important role when we're actually looking at your DNA in those other areas. So the science part of using your DNA, right? So this is the primary way that we want to talk about tonight. And the main thing, like I said, is your health and wellness. Like I said, my specialty that I deal with is genetics and epigenetics. So genetics helps you to discover your foundation from where you were born, from what you were born with, from your mother and father. So your mother and father and their mothers and fathers, so that's 4 lines, and their mothers and fathers. So it's keep going back all these generations, pass things down. So knowing how many percent you are from something or knowing you come from a certain culture is very important, because from those same things of finding out where you come from, you're also able to figure out, well, why does diabetes run in their family but doesn't run in my family? Why does cancer seem to quote unquote come in my family or my dad's side of my family, but it doesn't come in my mother's side of my family? High blood pressure, cholesterol, all those things, right? The things that you get from your mother and father that are baseline for you, that are your foundation, I call that a calm ocean or calm sea, is what you were born with from your mother and father, right? And so there are certain things that we can look at to say, yeah, that's what you got from your mom, that's what you got from your dad, and then we can figure out how to work with that based off your genetic makeup. Epigenetics is the expression of that. So they assist your genes with proper lifestyle habits. You are either helping or hurting your genes. So from the day you were conceived to the day today, actually you are either you're either hurting or helping your genes, right? So if you're a smoker, just think about that. Are you helping or hurting your genes? If you exercise on a regular basis, are you hurting or helping your genes? You may be surprised that for some people, certain exercises are not beneficial to them. They're actually hurting those genes based off that genetic makeup. So this is why in the day and age where you hear people saying doing genetic diets, doing, generic exercise, and that is becoming more foreign, and more people are finding out ways to being able to make their care individualized and customized to them. And that's what we specialize in. We assist people to make their care individualized to them, because even though you may come from the same family, or just because I do keto and then my best friend does keto, we may not even be able to have the same results. And that's fine and that's okay, because we're genetically different. And so because we're genetically different, we're going to have different experiences. Our bodies are going to need different things. And so the epigenetics of that is the expression of how you actually, those genes are actually showing up. Are you helping them or hurting them based off your lifestyle? Next slide for me. So continuing with the science, using genetics to find out how to discover and decode your wellness is a great way to customize and individualize your care to you. Your genetics are made up of your genes, right? The way those genes are expressed make up who you are. Based on your genes, you can find out just about anything. And when I say anything, I mean anything. That technology is growing every day. When it comes to your health and wellness, you can pretty much find out anything based off your genetics. We can find out what type of diet you should really be eating, right? And I like saying meals. What type of meals you should be eating. So some people may benefit more from a keto diet. I rarely see that. Just hints for people. But then you may need to be on a Mediterranean diet. You may need to be on a low carb, high fat. So based off your genetic makeup, we can find out by your genetics. Based on that, what is going to be the most beneficial to you. Now, does that come into play with your lifestyle? Yes, it does. Same thing with the ability to absorb minerals, vitamins. What type of exercise is going to be beneficial to you? How are you able to deal with stress? Some people are warriors. They're like, oh, I'm worrying about things. I'm so concerned about it. And that's their genetic makeup. And then some people are warriors. They hold stress in. They never share stress. They never say appear stress. It's those strong people. They say check on the strong people too. Those people who walk around and they seem like nothing stresses them. That is based off their genetic disposition, but there's also pros and cons to both of them because of what it does to your body. But you can find out based off your genetics what type of profile you have as far as how your body takes in stress. Same thing with sleep. Some people say, well, hey, I can function off of 4 hours of sleep. And then your genetic makeup will say, no, you cannot. You may do that and your body may have become accustomed to that because of your lifestyle, but you may be someone who needs to have 10 hours of sleep, even though you have not been doing that. Or you may need to be someone who has different types of things that say, hey, I have a problem with falling asleep. I have a problem with staying asleep. All of those are things that you can find out based off your genetic profile. Cardiovascular system, your respiratory system. We all know about what's going on right now. So respiratory system, you can find out what based off your genetics, how you would be able to counteract and deal with certain things as far as your respiratory. Acne and skin. Are you more acne prone? Are you more prone to have more porous skin? Do you need to use certain products and not use other products? How those estheticians tell you, hey, your T-zone breaks out, or you have those type of things based off the season. You can find that out based off your genetics. And one of the things that I just throw this in there, disclaimer, I use CBD now because of what I found out about my skin. And so I actually use CBD. Inflammation, pain, find out about that, right? Blood sugar, fatigue, your allergies, IBS, and so many other things. You can actually find out about your genetics find out about your health and wellness based on your genetics, your genetic profile of what you were born with, right? And so that information is growing each day. There's reports coming out every day about different things that you can find out from your genetic profile. So another area of genetics can help you is your endocannabinoid system via your cannabinoids. And so now we get into the good stuff. Because most of the time when you're talking about CBD and you're saying, well, what does CBD have to do with my genetics? There's different ways to find out based off certain genes. And we're going to talk about that in a minute, that what your endocannabinoid system does, right? and so in your cannabinoid system and what those things do and how CBD can either help or hurt you in certain ways. So your body has an endocannabinoid system, and Dr. Tanya talks about this all the time in her group about different things about endocannabinoids. Are you doing an edible? Some people take an edible in this way. We talk about dosing. We talk about all these different things. Should I take 500 milligrams? Should I take 1500 milligrams? Should I take an edible? Should I use a drop? Should I use a rub? All those things can be based and actually be determined, and they can assist you based off a genetic profile on baseline. So it can help you to have a better outlook or opinion or viewpoint about how you're actually using CBD and if you use THC as well. Cannabinoids, for those who are not familiar with it, are a family of fatty molecules that can act as chemical messengers, which are neurotransmitters, by binding to and activating the CB1 and CB2 receptors. This is very, very, very important, especially in this day and time where people, especially with stress, with everything that's going on in the world, when they don't realize that the firing off of your brain, when you have fatigue, chronic fatigue, when you have, hey, that brain fog, where, hey, where did I put my keys at? And then you kind of searching for your keys. You do that all the time, or you're not getting fully rested. All those things, you don't realize that the firing off that goes on inside of your brain, the neurotransmitters that send messages to and from different things to do stuff. Hey, make this leg move. Hey, fire off and do this. Hey, calm this down. Hey, speed this up. Those things are being affected over time, and they become overworked and overstressed. And so that's why a lot of people are having success with CBD, because it is helping in these areas. Some of those cannabinoids, such as the bliss molecule, anandamide, I never can say that, are naturally produced in the body, and thus they're called endocannabinoids, which means your internal cannabinoid system, right? So people are like, why they call it endocannabinoid system? Your inner body system is already, you're born with it, right? You are born with an endocannabinoid system that allows your body to say it should have a bliss molecule. It should have bring your body to be calm, or that word homeostasis, if you will, that teaches you that you can bring your body to be centered, to be zoned, to be zen. Just like they talk about in yoga and meditation, you're getting to your calm place. Your body is supposed to be able to naturally do that. But again, with all the stressors, with all the hormones, with all the way, the differences in diet and things of that nature, our body constantly is being pulled away from that homeostasis state. And so therefore we're not able to process that calm and bring that bliss molecule to be able to say, hey, calm down and chill out and just relax, right? So there are others in the cannabinoids, such as THC and CBD, that are in marijuana, that are compounds that resemble endocannabinoids, but which are not produced naturally in the body. So for those people who may be watching or have that confusion about why you should use a CBD or a THC, this is not to say, hey, you should or you shouldn't, but this acts, CBD and THC, in ways they mimic those natural endocannabinoids. And so they resemble them to your body. So your body's like, hey, that sounds almost right, or that feels almost right, or that does the same thing. So I'm going to give it the same reaction I would as if it was naturally producing that bliss molecule. And so that is why there are great benefits to using CBD, especially for like anxiety and things of that nature. Endocannabinoids are made from fatty acids. They are quickly broken down by enzymes when their effects are no longer needed, to avoid continuous stimulation of that CB1 and CB2 receptors. Different cannabinoid compounds are broken down by different enzymes and genes based on the person. This is why it's very important when someone says, hey, have you used CBD? And you're like, hey, yeah, I use CBD. And you're like, well, I tried CBD and it didn't work. And somebody else is using 500 milligrams and feels great. And you're using 1,000 milligrams and you're like, this is not working. It is because the way your body's breaking it down is totally different than someone else. And so you have to just kind of play with it and find out the information like we're telling you tonight. So why are those CB1 receptors important? Well, first of all, the main things that when you take CBD and things of that nature, it helps those CBD receptors to reduce stress and anxiety. It helps to improve mood, to induce sleep, promote brain cell development, prevent brain cell damage, and relieving pain. Sounds like what I hear Dr. Tanya talks about all the time, and what I talk about all the time as far as what CBD is benefit. So if you hear her, what she says her product line does, that is exactly why she says that, right? Because the CBD actually helps those CB1 receptors, and those CB1 receptors are responsible for these areas. They're responsible for helping in the reduction of stress and anxiety, then improving your mood and inducing sleep, and your especially your brain cell development. Like we said, those neurotransmitters that are firing off to and fro from the brain, that'll tell your brain to, hey, do this or remember this or react this certain way. They get diminished over time based off our lifestyle, and of course the relieving of pain, having those receptors to say, hey, this shouldn't hurt or this does hurt, inflammation and things of that nature. However, remember this, that excessive CB1 activity in the brain can also have a number of negative or potentially unwanted effects, such as impairing your cognitive performance, especially your memory, executive function, decision making, and your attention. It also can disrupt your circadian rhythm, your sleep patterns, and potentially interfering with your sleep. It could cause psychotic symptoms such as delusions, hallucinations, paranoia, and disorganized thinking. It also can increase in food intake and promote insulin resistance. So too much of activity in those receptors can also cause the negative thing. So too much of a good thing can be bad. And so you want to be mindful of that when you have those problems with sleep. That is usually, I see that a lot of my clients when they say that they can't stay asleep. They're like, hey, I could fall asleep, but I don't stay asleep. I feel like my mind is constantly racing even when I'm asleep. And that's usually because your neurotransmitters, your CB1 receptors, are still firing off when you should be calming down and going to sleep. That is one of the major things that happens with that. As far as pain, pain causes that as well. When you're in pain, it causes those receptors to be overreactive. Therefore, you're not able to get into that calm and that homeostasis factor that we talked about before. Activation of your CB1 receptors can also have effects on other parts of your body beyond just the brain. For example, your CB1 activation in the gut. Your gut is the second brain, and this is why you hear people talk about your gut health and things of that nature. So if it's doing something in the brain, it's definitely doing something and affecting your gut. Having proper CB1 receptors can help you to reduce or counteract that inflammation that we're talking about. Inhibit intestinal flow. Increase or decrease the function of the intestinal barrier depending on the type of the cannabinoid, which is essential to preventing diarrhea, inflammation, infection, and blood poisoning. In addition to, for the buzzwords of this time is leaky gut. Everybody's concerned and thinks that they have IBS or leaky gut and things of that nature. And there is a higher number of that is because those receptors are not able to do what? Bring you back into the calm state, and therefore it allows your gut, which is the second brain, to not function properly. So a lot of people, especially when we're doing all this detoxing and doing cleansing and things of that nature, you're only doing the gut. You're not cleansing and doing those other phases as well, and doing things that are going to cause that, which is a stressor. Most of the time, it's a stressor. That is why people are still having like chronic issues with inflammation in the bowel, or IBS, or they're having leaky gut, and they're wondering why those things are chronic. They're having chronic constipation or chronic diarrhea, and things of that nature. And so they're coming back with gut bugs and things of that nature due to the fact that your second brain is not being able to be effective. Next slide for me. So CRN1 and the endocannabinoid system, and this word gets good for me. One of the genes that supports the endocannabinoid system is the CNR1 gene. So when we're talking about genes, just know that you have many genes. And then sometimes I know when we were in science class, we weren't paying attention to the teacher when it was like, hey, in biology and these type of things, anatomy, when they were telling us that your DNA, right? And they were talking about A to T and C to G and all these different and the helix, that when it goes around spiraling like a spiral staircase, that when those things come together, they make pairs, right? And when there's a disruption in that pair of the A to T, the C to G, or things of that nature, when those are variation or disruption that is not the quote unquote norm, they call that a SNP, a SNP. And you can see that hopefully a little bit on the screen. That is considered a SNP, or what is called a variation, right? So that variation, when we look at those different things, that means that something is different, right, about that actual gene. And it could be, and that comes from your mother or your father. This is why it's important to understand and have your genetic code decoded, because you have to find out these things that are based off of you, because mine is completely different than yours, and yours is going to be completely different than your spouse, and yours is going to even be completely different than your children, because you and partner with someone else made your children. And so that is why it's important when you're looking at those things and trying to do health and wellness in as a whole or in a general standpoint. A lot of people get sick and tired of being sick and tired of trying things, and not being successful long term with a lot of stuff because they're trying at things because they're not aware. And so these are different ways that we look at it. So when I look at a genetic profile, I'm looking at the things that are making that person different, that are like red flags to me based off the information that is provided. So those SNPs actually come back and say, hey, there's a variation in this, right? And so you can see like that this one is actually the CNR1 gene. So this is the gene that I look at when my clients want to say, hey, I want to know if I can take CBD. I want to know if I could take THC, or why when I have THC, it just takes me over the top, or I just can't figure out, like, I can't take CBD. And you're like, okay, well, let's find out to see if there's something on the genetic level, if there's different things that something that's going on. Now we do different reports based off, like on the previous slide where we talked about all those different areas that you can find out your genetic makeup. And when Dr. Tanya introduced me, she said that we create the book of you. That is exactly what we do. The book of you is a composition of the reports that you could go to on day one of your life. Well, that won't happen, but where you are currently in your life or 20 years from now. This is the book of you. Just like some people believe in the Bible or the Quran or some type of text, or you pick up a book and you can just keep picking up that book and reading over and over and over, but the information is the same. Well, this is the book about you. And so we create that book about you that gives reports about the things that we talked about: your meals, your ideal diet, your exercise, your stress, your sleep, and things of that nature. And so sometimes we have clients who are into using CBD for like pain relief. They'll say inflammation, and what should I use for inflammation, or respiratory or cardiovascular? What should I use for those different things? And so I will pull up the report that shows this gene so that I can actually see if this is going to be something beneficial or there's something that they need to steer away from based off this report. And so as you can see, those like that, all those letters and things of that nature, please do not get scared away from that. That's on my terms of the background. To see all that RS and all those numbers, those are just different variations. When they check your actual different SNPs, there are millions, like over about it's close to about 350 million different types of variations based off the people in the world, right? And so they're like, it's kicking up against the algorithm that tells us that based off this genetic profile, is this homozygous? Is it the same? Like, is it the same type of when we see like TTCC, TTCs are like A's, or is it a T and a C, or is it an A and a T, or A and a G, brother? Are those things coming together in that way to make you as a person? And so when your genetic profile, it will look totally different because your actual genotypes are going to come up differently. And based off of that and the algorithm information that's provided, they're able to tell us the associations, right? And so you'll see that this person who I pulled the report on, you'll see that's something that's come up in red. So when I see a red, I'm like, whoa, wait a minute. Like, stop sign. Let's look at that and see what that is. And then if I see a green or a yellow, it kind of gives me a pause to kind of like pay attention to that. Where you see it says moderately reduced CRN1 activity and moderately increased, right? Those are the opposites. So whether it's reduced or increased tells me something about this person when it comes time for me to figure out what they can be able to use for their endocannabinoid system. Based as a whole, me just looking at this as a snapshot, this person has a generalized, nothing too major or too minor in regards to being able to take different things. If I see a whole bunch of those reds come up, then my conversation is going to be a little bit different when I talk to them about THC use, right? If it's a whole bunch of greens come up there, I'm going to be like, hey, you need to be careful when you're using THC, and then even the form of how you use CBD, right? And so this is very insightful for me, where I spend the bulk of my time with the client, because I'm able to see those things and actually give them instructions. So if I see a lot of those things where it says increase, I'm like, hey, you might not be a 500 milligram person, and you may not need to take it first with the edible because it's going to take a longer time to get to you. So you may want to try tincture, right? Or you might want to do something directly. So those are where you're able to make more of a plan when you're actually working with someone to, or looking at your genetic profile to be able to determine how are you going to use CBD, THC, etc. So next slide for me. So the effects of this gene variant is that it is important to keep in mind, first of all, that the genetics is still only one part of the equation. Many things go into factor with this. Your dietary system, like we said, your lifestyle. So this is where the epigenetics comes into play. Your environmental factors can also play a role in determining the overall activity of your endocannabinoid system. So if I see someone who has those type of variants and they smoke cigarettes, they drink alcohol excessively, then my thing is going to be different. If they have been saying, hey, I have been diagnosed with anxiety or depression, the response is that going to be a little bit different, because the lifestyle, again, are you helping or hurting your genes, is definitely going to play a role into how we say what was baseline for your genes. So it's A plus B equals a C type of situation. We have to take a picture, a snapshot of each thing, and then make a big picture. So when you're looking at the variations in this the SNP, you have to think about as far as like drug use and addiction, right? If you see those variants that link to an increased activity, remember we saw that green, of the CB1 receptors, right? Have been associated with addiction to different types of drugs. So is that something that you have to be mindful about, or I have to be mindful about, when we see those different things? Yes, because can something become addictive? Is it something that maybe needs to be taken once every 2 weeks or once a month versus every day? Those are the type of things when you start to make up that plan, that we have to be mindful for. Same thing with anxiety and depression. That if it's a variation that shows a reduced CB1 activity, that has been associated with anxiety and mood disorders. So someone who actually has that, then they say, hey, am I taking CBD or am I taking THC? Right? Maybe not so much THC. We may start doing things at CBD, and we're going to be mindful of the type of CBD that we're using, or the way they're doing it. So it may not even be like an edible. It could be like a gummy, or a tincture instead of a gummy. And so those are the type of things that you're looking at, those that give you an extra level of stuff. Same thing with like schizophrenia. Those variants have been associated with increased shrinkage of some brain areas in people with schizophrenia when they have frequently used marijuana. So someone who has a variant, that their recommendation for me is to not actually use THC in that concept, right? Gut health. Well, again, we talk about the second brain. So we talk about those things that have different, like increased or decreased, how they're associated with your digestive conditions such as the IBD, IBS, and severe nausea. So based off those variations, how are you going to respond to maybe use that person may need THC, believe it or not, depending on if the variant was a increase or decrease, variation in the gene. Heart disease, same thing. That variant believed to reduce CB1 activity has been associated with a lower incidence of heart disease. So again, these are health benefits or hindrances helping or hurting those genes. Obesity, this is a big one I get a lot because people are like, hey, you try to tell me that my endocannabinoid system and my use of CBD can help or hurt my weight. And we're like, yes. In an overall big snapshot of the picture, it can. The CRN1 gene has been associated with obesity or leanness, like being skinnier, or being overweight, depending on their effects on the CB1 activity. Is it increased or reduced? And so those things are important when you're looking at the overall. So that's just one snapshot. We actually look at the overall picture for the person to see when we're looking at something as far as weight. So alternative strategies for altering your CRN1 activity. So here are just a number of lifestyle, dietary, and supplement-based approaches that you can consider using potentially increase or decrease your CRN1 activity, right? However, keep in mind that both high and low activity of the CRN1 variants have been associated with a number of different relative benefits and drawbacks. Therefore, altering your CRN1 activity can solve some problems while also potentially causing other problems to arise in their place. In other words, there are some potential pitfalls in changing your CNR1 activity too drastically. It is important to be aware of these possibilities when choosing from the strategies described below. Overall, the best approach is to select a handful of strategies that can help you nudge your CRN1 activity in the right direction, which also directly addresses the specific aspects of your health you are interested in targeting. So some of the things that you can do to help with altering that CRN1 gene, which activates your endocannabinoid system, is CBD oil. So the CBD is one of the main things that I recommend. Like when they ask me, there are several that you can do. One of the number one things that is like probably 97% of the time is CBD. And the reason why is because it mimics the actual natural, as we said earlier in the slide, it mimics the natural, what your body naturally does with the endocannabinoid system. So since it mimics it so well, and it's easy to use and it's easy to absorb, then I'm like, hey, just use that. And so, are there other things that can activate it? Yes, black pepper, echinacea, several other of those other herbs can actually help, but it's very hard to use those for dosing. It's very hard to say, well, how much black pepper do I need to activate my endocannabinoid system to make me calm or have less pain? How much echinacea, right? So even though people have this battle with CBD oil, it's way easier. It's way easier to figure out and help with dosing and how your body's going to regulate that type of mimicking the endocannabinoid system. It is very easy to do CBD. So that is why I'm an advocate, a huge advocate for using CBD, because it's an easier way to do it. Yes, you can use essential oils. Yes, you can use other herbs, but it's so much easier to be able to use CBD oil. Now, whether you're taking that as a tincture, whether you're using that as a edible, whether you're doing it, like actual bud, however you're doing that is going to be determined on your genetic makeup and actually how you like it and what you're actually using it for. Some people using it for cooking. I've seen different shows, that Dr. Tanya and her group has been doing, like doing cooking, things of that nature. You may want to do something on the go. You may want to have you may exercise and you're in pain, so you may want to rub an elbow. All those things are important. And so how you're using them is just determined on your lifestyle and how your body is going to be able to absorb them. But CBD is one of the ones that I like always, for the most part, recommend unless we have something else. So CBD directly increases the production of that CB1 receptor. CBD has also been shown to reduce the psychotic symptoms of schizophrenia and make the gut less leaky in response to inflammation, possibly helping with IBD and other digestive issues. So again, that's why I hands down why I recommend using CBD oil. Another one is that we say, like, why is this a strategy, Sequoyah? And we're talking about using CBD. Avoiding cannabis use, and when I say avoiding cannabis use, most of the time it's going to be the avoiding of like a THC, right? So when we've seen that those variants there, so the minus C variant has been associated with reduced brain volumes in people with schizophrenia who abuse like cannabis, and associated with increased anger and hostility, right? So carriers of a certain CNR1 variant should be especially cautious with using, they call this a drug. And so for some people, depending on how I remember, I said that those colors pop up, it may be beneficial for that person to not use not to use THC, or to maybe not use THC alone. Maybe they have to put a little CBD with it, or maybe they have to use like a Delta 8 or something like that to be able to, benefit them to where they're getting a mixture or something like that. So those are things why it's beneficial to actually see that genetic profile, because we're able to help in those type of areas, and those lifestyle things that come along with it, they do play a part in that. Managing stress is alternative, right? Stress causes functional and structural changes in the brain that may be severe depending on the intensity, duration, and age of exposure. Develop a stress-busting hobby such as yoga or meditation, or incorporate CBD. Here we go again with the genetics and the CBD. Even the managing of stress can help alter your CNR1 or your CB1 receptor, like the response. So reducing stress helps your endocannabinoid system, right? And so one way that we can help reduce stress is by using CBD. Hence the reason why, I am a big proponent for, a big advocate about using CBD, because it kills about 10 stones actually, in one, when you're actually looking at how you can actually benefit your body in multiple different ways with one, the one stone can kill two or three people, like two or three things. So two birds with one stone type of situation. You could take care of a lot of things with just one like situation. Omega-3 fatty acids, right? So remember, we talked about it before, that they are fatty molecules. So things that are going to have a fatty acid, and I'm not talking about things that are like fat, right? But the fat molecules that are actually beneficial that you need, such as like your omega-3, 6, and 9, like those fatty fish such as mackerel, salmon, sardines, herrings, are rich in omega-3 fatty acids, right? With your EPA and your DHA. Omega-3 fatty acids are a good way to potentially increase the CB1 activity without experiencing the downside associated with higher CB1 levels. But guess what? CBD contains omega-3 and 6. So for those people who are like, hey, I don't want to eat fish, I don't want to eat those type of fish, right? Take CBD. It can still help in those areas. So again, here's another example of why why the recommendation is like a lot to use CBD because you're able to use those things for different areas to take care of several of these strategies to help the activity of your endocannabinoid system and bring you back to that homeostasis. So yeah, CBD is like is the bomb. Next slide for me. So the goal of using the genetic testing for CBD, right? So to sum this up, the main thing about using the genetic profile and in incorporation with CBD and how those things go together in my world and my realm, and why I'm an advocate about using both of them together, is because it shows you how the variants you carry from your mother and father for that CNR1 gene, how they determine your overall like CB1 activity, your overall endocannabinoid system. It gives me a snapshot to say, hey, this is what their endocannabinoid system looked like from birth, from what they got from their mother and father. So it shows you that. So you don't have to guess. You don't have to say, well, maybe I have a sluggish one. Maybe it's sped up. Maybe it's not acting right. Maybe it's this. Maybe it's that. You can know. We say all the time, stop guessing and test. You can find out and actually have this information provided to you where you can actually see it and know about you, and not by John, Suzanne, Barbara, and Jean, based off you, right? And so not having to say, well, I think I could try this, I can do this, or I can, see if they're gonna work this way, making it so that you can actually be more defined and definitive about what you're going to be doing as far as your health and wellness in that way. It's also to inform you about the various effects that your CNO variants can be having on various aspects of your physical and psychological health. When you get information about how your endocannabinoid system that is helped by CBD is, you get to see that what is it doing to you physically, what is it doing to you psychologically. Then you get to see, hey, this is why it's beneficial for me to take CBD. This is why it's beneficial for me not to do it in this way, because I can see what baseline based off what I was born with my genetics and how I'm living my life since then helps or has been helped or hurt based off what I'm doing. And so you're able to see those variants and have again the bird's eye view of what is going on with you. It gives you personalized health recommendations. So not only does it say, hey, these are the variations, it gives you the recommendations to help you adjust your CNR1 activity, thereby potentially counteracting some of those variant potential negative effects. If you know how to help the situation, you're less likely to hurt it. So if I know that this type of CBD or this THC or something is not going to be beneficial to this area, i.e. my gut health or my mental health, I'm more likely to do that. And I'm actually able to know and target the area of my life that is beneficial to me. Also to determine how having access to all this information can help you to make more educated decisions about your lifestyle, diet, supplements in order to keep yourself as healthy as possible. In this day and age that we're in, the whole name of the game is to be healthy, happy, and gain harmony. That is the ultimate goal that we preach and practice about, to be healthy, happy, and gain harmony. The best way to do that is to have these tools and resources available to you so that you can benefit from that. So that is the benefit. I hope you guys have any, Dr. Tanya, let me know if there are any questions. But that is the main thing that we talk about when we determine and figure out what is the benefit of using genetics in combination with your CBD. So any questions? And then if not, I'll go over some frequently asked questions as well.
Wow, Sequoyah, this has been absolutely amazing. And it's been amazing because I know I've got a page full of notes. Like I've been taking notes and driving the slides. And yeah, so we do have some questions. We do have some questions, and I'm just going to scroll. We have questions and comments. So let's see. Chef Alex says she always says cannabis is in her DNA. You were talking. You were talking earlier about and Chef Alex, you may want to make that a complete sentence. How do we figure that out? I think it was when you were talking about the in genetics. And so she typed, how do we figure that out? So I don't know if that's your full question, Alex. So if you could give me a little bit more. And let's see. Rose Fauntleroy said, this is an excellent presentation. And let's see. Alex was asking about type or strain. Alex, I need the complete question.
But she asked me about, can she figure out the type of strain that's called?
I think you were talking about whether you should use the different types of, I think, CBD products. And I think she was asking if you meant the type or strain. And that was one of the questions that I wanted to ask. Do strains matter? Her question was, how do you get tested, and does my insurance cover this?
So the testing we can do through my practice, and sometimes if depending on if you say I know a lot of people have used like FSA, HSA,
Mm-hmm.
for the most part, but a lot of things with health is if you're trying to be proactive and find out stuff. Of course, we know our healthcare system, they usually don't. But a lot of people who have had like their FSA or HSA and they're using it for like genetic testing, which is what you're doing, then you can definitely attempt it. You just call them and say, hey, if I do genetic testing for my health and wellness, can I use my FSA or HSA card? Because this is just what you saw tonight about using that for the CBD and the endocannabinoid system is just one report of like 40 or 50 that we could pull, that book that creates the book of you. So when we say the book of you, you could pull up and say, hey, I want to do a marathon in December. How am I going to be able to, live my life based on, how are my genetics going to help me or hurt me when it comes time to a certain type of exercise, right? Or I'm not getting any sleep, so how is that beneficial or harmful with stress and things of that nature? So we actually create the book of you. So those reports, that little screenshot that you saw, actually comes in forms of reports. We could put them together, and you can print them. I have my clients print and bind them so that they can go back and review the information all the time. In regards to the different types of strands about using the DNA, I've seen that there are different types of research. Like I said, this is a hot topic. If you guys are like interested in this type of stuff and being an advocate, this is hot topics. Genetics right now and CBD, hot topic. Why? Because people are saying, how can we use CBD or THC for those type of things? So there's so many things that are in the labs. People are in the labs. They're doing different reports and things of that nature. So on the daily, we're getting reports as far as genetics as a whole. But they're actually doing studies to see how this thing is going to work out. Because remember, the legislation that's going on about is this right or wrong? Is it helpful or harmful? Is still going on. So there are people behind the scenes that are doing research to say, hey, this is helpful. Like even on health, this is how we can tell you based off your genetics or based off your health and wellness that you can able to do this. Because even with doing certain lab tests, if I do a gut test on someone and they come back with um, a gut bug after we do eradication, I'm still going to recommend CBD because that helps to heal the lining of your gut and things of that nature. So on so many different spectrums that we could be using, CBD. So as far as a specific strand, I have not seen particular research come out with that. I will say that based off certain, like, is it an increase or decrease activity? I can say whether you're going to say, hey, maybe because you see how you have reduced like activity, it may take a little bit longer. So some people eat edibles, and I'm sure Dr. Tanya has heard this. They'll eat edibles and say, I had your product and it doesn't work, right? Because they had an edible. But if they would use a tincture at 1,000 milligrams, it will work, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it is based off the way that the endocannabinoid system is benefit. Like, is it going to work? And that's the same thing with dosing. I think this actually helps with dosing as well, because if I'm someone who is, yes, if you're using it for pain, you may be using it a little bit more. But why is that? Because of my genetic profile, it says that I have a slow response to CBD or those type of things for my neuro and my endocannabinoid system. So it gives you the higher, like a heightened level of information that you can apply when you're doing it. So you may say, hey, if I just want to relax, I may use an edible. But when I really want to get some relief, I may have to use a tincture,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Mm-hmm.
I may have to use a higher dose of tincture more often, right? Or some people may say, listen, I could take 1,000 milligrams and that lasts me a whole day. I don't have to do anything else. Where some people are like, listen, that doesn't help me. Every 2 to 3 hours, I have to do something, right? And so that lets us know, because we're different, the response that we have to CBD or those things that we're asking about dosing. I think that kind of helps that question when people are like, well, how much should I take? And I'm like, I don't know. Like, that's just like anything else. When you're doing stuff, you have to actually work with it and listen to your body and take notes and and write down things so that you're able to understand your body. Your body is going to respond to stuff totally different. I know some people who can cook with CBD and never feel anything. They're like, oh, I just do it for wellness. But then some people taking it like, oh wow, okay, I feel buzz, I feel okay. So everybody has a different response based off how and what they're using, and I think that's the benefit that you can do. So the short answer of long of that question, do I think eventually they're going to have like reports that come out about different strains? Yes, because they're doing research and they're testing different strains, especially with this Delta 8 stuff. They're testing
Mhm.
to see the benefits that it brings to the body. So I definitely think that it's coming.
I'm so glad that you mentioned that. Alex, go and listen. Last week, Dr. Dana talked about terpenes and the benefits of terpenes. And I definitely see how this information that we've gained tonight, along with kind of understanding how CBD works in your body and then how to breaking it down and making it more individualized to how it works in your body specifically. But in the session we did last week, check out the one on terpenes, because I think, and this is for anyone, if you are considering getting genetic testing, or you're considering working with Sequoyah Taylor, which we're going to give you her information at the end, I would definitely say once you've done that and you find out what is going to be best for you, then if you want to use if a CBD THC mixture works for you for your situation, then you can choose the right strain with the right terpenes. So you're 100% using for wellness in a way that's going to work best for your body. So
Right.
I love that. I love that. Some of the notes that I've written down are: health and wellness is not generic, it's genetic. And I think so many
Ooh.
times we're following the crowd. We're following we're following the latest buzz. And like you said, keto may be good for one person, but it may not be good for someone else. So health and wellness is genetic. It's not generic.
I'm
I
gonna
have another
quote you on
question
that.
here.
I'm going to have to quote you on that one. That
Go
was a good
ahead.
one.
Well, go ahead, write it down. So another one is how much you talked about, and I can't remember which slide it was, but I guess the question is, how much is too much of a good thing when it comes to the CRN1 gene and CBD and or THC? How much, how do you determine, or how does the individual determine, oh, wait a minute, this is too much? And does the testing help with, again, I think that it's probably a dosing question, but can you kind of shed some light on that? If a
Um, the,
report comes back and says, hey,
right.
too much of a good thing.
Right, the testing definitely helps because, like I said, I just showed one little snippet of that. The report is like 24 pages. So it's actually more detailed and it actually gives variations in the snips for that person. So it is very much baseline based off the person, right? And then
Mhm.
what area of life are we talking about? Like you said, for your products, you use that for what? Pain, for sleep, for stress. So if we're talking about for stress, we would say, hey, wait a minute, that may be fine right here.
Mhm.
It wasn't a lot of activity. You see, some of them were normal based off that what you saw on the screen. Some of them were normal. Then you had one that was reduced activity and one was increased activity, right? So if sometimes I see it as people lit up like a Christmas tree. It's green, and you're like, oh, wait a minute, right? And so then you ask about those questions. Hey, mental health, was that an issue? Anxiety, depression, is that an issue? Hey, do you
Mhm.
smoke like cigarettes? Do you drink? Did you ever had a problem? You think that's where, as the practitioner, we ask those questions because those lifestyle things actually help us to make that determination. Because if it's lighting up here on the screen and you're actually feeding into that, then yeah, we're gonna be like, yeah, you might not want to play around with stuff as often, right? It may be someone who says, "Hey, I like using THC, but then I notice that I get angry, I'm getting upset, or I'm not being able to. I feel like I'm outside of myself." Then, hey, based off the report, that is why. And so
Mhm.
it's still going to be an individual thing that we get to kind of baseline see along with the lifestyle stuff. That's where the epigenetics comes in at. What are you doing with your lifestyle based off that too? Because some people are doing stuff their lifestyle that is just as bad. Like you may say, well, are drinking and smoking, yeah, but if you're eating foods that is not healthy and your immune system is compromised, then am I going to be concerned about if you have increases in your gut health area? Yes,
Mm.
because it's not fully functioning anyway, so it's going to be beneficial. So I'm like, oh yeah, you can load up on CBD, you'll be fine. Like
Okay.
you need it to bring your body back to homeostasis, because that's what happens. I think when most people don't realize the benefit of CBD is just this buzz thing, like you said, is everybody doing something now, is becoming common, it's a cool thing to do. But what they don't realize is that everything that takes your body out of center, out of homeostasis, is a stressor. Everything,
Mm.
right? You can either fight or flight, or you're rest or sleep. So
Mm.
everything is a stressor. Everything. So the whole redefining of what stress is to your body. And so your endocannabinoid system very much helps that determine that. Oh, wait a minute, you kind of getting a little wild out here, and that's why I can't respond. Right? But we've been doing it for so long though. So some people have been. I was like, when the last time you I know you've heard this when someone tried your product and they're like, hey, I thought you said the CBD not gonna make me high. And you're like, it's not. And you're like, but wait, why do I feel high? You're like, no, sweetheart, you're not high. You feel calm. It
Right.
goes back. And so it's been so long for most people since they felt calm that they don't know what that feels like. And
Yeah.
think about your poor body. It doesn't know what it feels like either. And so when you bring it back in, it can be a great thing. So on average though, because of all the stress that people are going through internally, externally, there is a long time, a long gap of period before we start getting into too much of a good thing. Very rarely, unless it comes up and it's showing those things and stuff like mental health areas,
Right.
things of that nature, or like if you're depressed and stuff like that. For the most part, I'm like, it's gonna be a while before you get to it's too much of a good thing, because you way over here and you need some help. So to bring you back to you're so far from baseline that it'll be a while before we be able to get concerned with that. And so like
Okay.
for someone like me, I take CBD for health, for just maintenance now. I don't take it for like, hey, I need it. I'll take it for pain and stuff like that. But every day I dose, and so whether I get a feeling or not, I take it every day for health and wellness, so that it helps my endocannabinoid system. And I think
Mhm.
that is going to be the next drive in which you hear people say, oh, well, I don't take CBD just to calm down, or just for pain, or just for sleep. I take CBD because I need it. It is in my daily regimen that I need to take it to bring my body back to homeostasis. And so when we get into that mindset, then it won't be a concept so much of too much of a good thing. It'll just be my baseline, and it's helping me stay close to my center.
So if you're taking a tincture, keep it with your vitamins and take it every day, or as you learn how
Mhm.
it works with your body, how you need to take it. I'm glad you talked about the CBD oil, which is a tincture, because oftentimes I will hear people say, "Well, I don't like the the oily taste in my mouth. You know, I'd rather take an edible, or I like edibles, or I'd rather smoke the the CBD bud." And so what I tell people is, if you are if you are using products for wellness, because that's what we talk about, you're using products
Mhm.
for wellness, then you want to get closest to the product that's going to best work with your body. And I believe that what we've learned tonight is will definitely help people get to that place so that they can reach more homeostasis. And you're absolutely correct. I hear that all the time, you know, wow, I felt really, really good, or I felt high. No, you didn't feel high. It's been so long since you felt relaxed and
Mhm.
calm, you forgot what that felt like.
Mhm. And I think the thing is that too, people kind of balk at the taste of stuff, and I'm like, that's anything that tastes earthy or green, as you know, they say that tastes like earth, or it tastes green.
Yeah.
That your body recognizes that as real, right? So we're
Yes.
so used to eating chips, and your body's like, well, that's why I can't process that, because it's not real. But I can eat an apple or orange. It's like, oh, that comes from the earth, right? And so that's why it's important for you. It's good if it tastes like earth. And so what I
Exactly.
tell people all the time, I'm like, hey, put it in a capsule. Take it in capsule form.
Put
Put
in
it
your
in
coffee, put in your tea.
oh my gosh, I made Rice Krispie treats that are like with laced with CBD. Like, I mean, it's so many different ways that you can do it. If you're doing it for health and wellness, like put it in your belly button, right? Like, there's so many different. Yes, my 6 year old, I put it in her belly button. Belly button
Really?
CBD. Yes, ma'am.
All right.
So it's like it's so many different ways. Like if you know the reason and you know the cause, then because we're doing it on a daily basis and what it does, right? There's so many. Like I said, there are other things that can help you, but to me, CBD is the easiest. I don't have to worry about, hey, if I, like I said, how much black pepper it takes for me to get. I don't have to worry about that. I'm like, hey, once I find my jug for what I'm using CBD for, um, I don't even have to worry about am I going to feel a feeling. It's just like I know what it's doing. I know the health benefit that I have because I've had my genetic testing, and I know that health and wellness wise, it's helping my body. So it doesn't matter if I feel anything or not. It's for health.
So I've got another question. When we've been talking about CBD and genetics and how it works with your body and everything, but at the I guess the big picture is this genetic testing is great across the board. It'll help you in all areas of your life. And I love how when you broke it down, you started out, you talked about the science of genetics, the spirituality of genetics, and the succession of genetics, and how there's certain things that some scientists refer to as, well, that's junk DNA. We don't need to talk about it, but it all makes up the wholeness of the individual. So with that being said, when should a person get genetic testing? Is there an age limit? You got to be 18 or older. When should a person consider getting genetic testing?
So I believe now, if you are sick and tired of guessing and trying, now is the time because it gives you that baseline and the book of you can continue to go back to.
Mm.
One of my missions, especially like we're creating a nonprofit. I believe that when the kids start going through like 12 or 13, they should start learning those things because you're learning about yourself, right? Why the same way when someone will learn about your genealogy, I think that it should be incorporated as a part of their health so that they can a lot of that learning curve that they have to learn or a lot of that trying and guessing that they have to do, that they don't have to do that. So you could do genetic testing at any age because it's never going to change. My DNA
Mm.
is never going to change, right? How it's expressed will change based on how I help or hurt my genes. But the baseline is never going to change. That's why when you get the book of you could pick it up and put it down and pick it up and put it down as much as you want, right? Because you can continue to gain information, and that's why I tell people that's the most priceless information that you could get. Because people are like, well, the cost of it, or is I'm like, you're investing in something that you can forever use, right? You could 10 years from now, you could pick up that book and it will still be the same information about
Right.
you because it's not going to change. And so there's never a wrong time to do the genetic testing. A lot of people are getting to the point where they're learning about functional medicine, when they're learning about integrative medicine. And so they're like, wait a minute, like I know about doing lab tests, but lab tests tell me where you are right now. And I love that as a piece. But for me, in my specialty and my niche, and because I'm the science geek, and as you can see, can talk about the genetic thing all day, um, I feel like the missing piece of the puzzle is that you don't know where hence you came in all areas, right? So you don't know where hence you came, you don't know where you're going, right? And so I feel like there's a foundational piece for a lot of people that is missing. The part of the piece of the puzzle that if you can fill that puzzle in, then you can make changes on a lot of things. Because yes, I may look and say, hey, and on this thing it said that I have reduced activity, but why does it feel like I'm always having firing off or inflammation? That's the opposite. Well, you've been living a lifestyle that's caused that gene to act up. The ocean is making a wave. It's making the waves act up and cause a problem because of the way you've been living your lifestyle. So you've been hurting that gene, and that's why it's adding up. But because they have that baseline information, you're able to make an adjustment. Hey, what do I need to do? Oh, well, maybe I need to have some CBD. Maybe I need to do some yoga. Maybe I need to go to sleep at 8. Maybe I need. You can have those information to help you to reduce those things that you're having. And so it works to be proactive, and then it also has to be reactive as well because you have the information provided for you.
Oh my God. This is, Chef Alex says, definitely tonight I learned so much. This has been amazing. She says, seems like we should get genetic testing along with the yearly checkup. But as she said, you only need to get it one time because you'll have it forever.
Right.
So we are at the top of the hour. Guys, if you have any additional questions, go ahead and drop them in the chat as we wrap up. If you are interested in connecting with Sequoyah Taylor, Here is her contact information. You can screenshot it, or you can also find her in the Bangology Cannabis Society group. She is there as well, and would love for you to continue this discussion. And let's see, of course, that has gone in a different direction than I wanted it to go. But so thank you. Thank you for joining us tonight, Sequoyah, and sharing this amazing information. Guys, like every session that we have, make sure that if you go to our store, you can get 10% off with the code TrueGreen. TrueGreen, go to Bangology.com, where you can try out our Isolate Full Spectrum and Delta 8 gummies. And then again, like I said, we had Sequoyah's information. I keep wanting to call you Dr. Sequoyah. You know, we're giving out doctors over here. So
don't tip them on it.
I know I want to call you Dr. Sequoyah. So guys, thank you so much. Let me see. Everybody has said great information. Thank you. Sounds like we will definitely be having you come back, because I think this is a great spinoff to talk about dosing. That's one of the questions that I get a lot is, how do I dose? And so that's probably going to be a topic that's coming up soon. Guys, make sure that you follow Sequoyah on all platforms. She's Sequoyah Taylor on everywhere, I think, right? Is that correct? You're everywhere?
On Facebook and Instagram and like TikTok, if you will.
Yeah, just anywhere you want to find her, you can find her there. And here's her contact information again. And guys, everybody says right on track. Great. So thank you guys for joining us again for a great session. We really appreciate you supporting these educational components. Bangology is about not only just, pushing products, but it is truly about educating people so that they understand what they're purchasing and how to best make it work with your body. So follow us, subscribe to this channel. If you're watching on YouTube, if you're not watching on YouTube, subscribe to this channel so you can come back every month. We have 2 educational sessions a month. We try to make them fun, but we also want to make them educational so that you can make the right choices for you and your family. I am Dr. Tanya Lowe, CEO and founder of Bangology and the Renewing Extract Wellness, and we'll see you next time.